Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start our meeting. First of all, thank you for being here at our first Mission Progressing Together meeting for the year 2022 for our second semester. My name is Flor Sanchez. I'm the parent coordinator for the district. And before we start with our meeting, I would like to make the time to present our coordinators for the campuses. First, we have Ms. Emma Perez. Ms. Emma, she is from Borrego. And then we have Ms. Gaby Ortiz. She's from Alarcón. She's assisting us with the signing sheets in the front, as well as we have Ms. Rebecca. She's from Loya as well. She's assisting us with the signing sheets out there. We have Ms. Portillo, she is the coordinator for San Elizario High School. And we have Ms. Chavez. She is the coordinator for Gens, but she couldn't be with us this afternoon, as well as Ms. Claudia Guerrero Sosa, and she's from Zambrano. Again, thank you for being here with us this afternoon. Next, I'm gonna have Dr. Mesa, our superintendent for the district, to share with us some messages and announcements that we have for this month.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Flor. I'd like to thank all of you for being here. We know that there's a lot of places to be, but I'm thankful that you are here. Please remember that we are recording. Our intent is always to communicate this information in 2 languages because we are a dual language district. We did have our morning meeting in Spanish, and this afternoon our meeting will be in English. So with that being said, our Progressing Together meetings, our mission is to do that, to be on a mission to progress together. Not only the district of San Elizario, but also the city of San Elizario. And so when we send out that's more information, you get it via email, you get it via text. We want to make sure that you know that we do our best to try to get as much information in there for you. These meetings, I will remind you, are not to handle personal individual cases that may be happening in the school system. They are to provide our parents, our community information about the work that is being done in the district. I do enjoy answering questions at the end of the meeting, but the meeting is not to handle individual cases. Those we would like to give the privacy that our students deserve, so we can handle those cases on a case-by-case situation. With that being said, like Ms. Flor indicated, this is the beginning of the school year. For us, it's the second beginning of the new year. It is a continuation of our school year. We are heading off into our second semester, very important because we will have seniors graduating at the end. With that being said, these meetings are always held the day before school board meetings. We do have a school board meeting tomorrow at 5:30 in here in this room, so you're welcome to join us back tomorrow. We also, on the 17th of January, we have the day off. Thank you to the work of Martin Luther King Jr. and everything he has done, and we have a lot of work to still continue to do in that area. But we do want to let our parents know that January 17th is a non-school day. We also have our El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank, which is going to be held here on Wednesday, January 19th. And I know that this morning I mentioned the 100 days of school. That'll actually be January 31st. It actually feels like 200 days of school, right? With everything going on. So, but that is the day that we do make a very big deal because we're way into the school year. Another important item that we're going to be working on is we're going to be working on some profiles where we're going to be asking you as parents to get involved. We're going to be working on student, employee, and parent profiles. So we will begin next week with our leadership team. But if you would like to sign up to be part of helping our district develop our student, employee, and parent profiles, if you want to be on that committee, you can contact your parent liaison at your campus or contact Ms. Flor here at the district office because we definitely want to have our parent input. In addition, we have the Latino Literacy Project Kickoff, and that's one of my favorites because they read books in Spanish and English. But it shows also our parents how to be able to be great models to do and implement literacy at home. That kickoff will happen February 4th. I believe there's information, and Ms. Flor will cover a little bit more, but there's a flyer in your packet with that information. At this time, I'd like to bring up here two colleagues who are working on our first literary district anthology, the Champions Edition. So I'd like Ms. Ana Alvarez and Ms. Georgina Diaz to come on over and join us and give us a little bit more information.
Thank you, Dr. Mesa Chavez. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Ana Alvarez. I'm the Instructional Officer for Reading, Language Arts, and for Social Studies. I'm joined today by...
Good afternoon, my name is Georgina Diaz and I'm the Elementary Instructional Officer here at the district.
So we have these yellow forms. They'll be distributed to you right now, or they're up here on the table. And just like Dr. Mesa Chavez mentioned, if you guys take a moment to look around in this room, or if you've had the opportunity to drive by the high school, or maybe even Zambrano, you've noticed that we are celebrating how we are champions here in San Elizario. But we are documenting, we are creating this anthology that Dr. Mesa Chavez mentioned, and an anthology is a collection of works. So they are pictures, they are essays, they are poems, they are things of that nature. But it's not only from our students, but it starts with you all. It starts at home. So on this flyer, we're asking you, what makes you a champion? Tell us your story. Our students have been able to be successful because of you. So we want you to tell us, why are you a champion? What have you done? What have you overcome? And so if you need help, we have some workshop days that we'll be having here in the district. And we are asking all submissions to be due by March 4th. That's a Friday. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear your story and we'd love to memorialize it in the book and have you be part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ms. Alvarez is correct. Look around this room. You know, we have a total of 3 soccer state championships. We have 6 cross-country state championships, and we have 1 2013 Texas State Teacher of the Year. And along with the theme of the literary anthology being the Champions Edition, where we hope that you're able to participate, I'd like to make you aware that we also have these t-shirts at every one of our campuses. Our students, you know, if you want to have your student wear them, they are available at your child's school. Every one of our 6 schools has the shirts. So you have, here's the front, this is the back part here, and then it has the initials, I think, on one of the sides here. So that's one way to help boost the school spirit in our district. And I know that I think I'll make it official. You know, when the kids buy and you buy these t-shirts, are $10. We want to make sure that our students are able to wear them so we can make them part of their uniform, so they can actually wear this with their jeans. So with that being said, that is along with our Champions Edition theme. I'd like to bring my colleague, Ms. Flor, back on up here so she can help us transition.
Thank you, Dr. Mesa. Next, we're gonna have our presenters. They come from Emergence Health Network. They're gonna be presenting on mental health. Next, we have Ms. Rocio Bacay and Mr. Gandara. They're gonna be the ones presenting. And remember, these presentations we bring to the parents that request these topics, and to everyone else that would benefit from this topic.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rocio Bicay. We're here. This is my coworker, Ricardo Gandara. We're both here from Emergence Health Network. And we're going to be talking to you all about a topic that I think is important right now with, you know, a lot of the stuff that's going on. It's identifying signs of stress or signs of your child struggling and how to help them manage that stress. So we're going to start talking about what stress is, right? So we all know what stress feels like, right? Sometimes we feel different aches and pains in our body, maybe headaches or feeling irritable or frustrated, all of that, right? So what stress really is, it's how our brain and our body manages challenges and different demands that we come across. It is a perfectly natural response to any of those challenges that we come across, to any of those changes that we come across. A stressor, needless to say, you know, it can be something that happens one time, you know, one and done, it's done and over with, or it can be something that happens several times over a period of time. So we have different kinds of, you know, events and different kinds of things that happen, and they can all fall along that kind of spectrum. However, not all stress is bad, right? We need stress. Like I said, it's a survival mechanism that humans developed when we come across dangerous situations, right? I think a lot of us have heard of that fight, flight, or freeze response. You come across, I don't know, a bear or a mountain lion, and your brain is going to decide that you're going to be doing one of those things, right? So either stand up to it and try to fight it, try to outrun it, or freeze and you don't do anything about it, kind of like an opossum, right? And so any of those things could increase our chances for survival. However, a lot of the stress that we face on a daily basis is not life-threatening, right? It's not for dangerous situations. In those kinds of situations, this stress that we experience can actually help us motivate us to do, whatever it is that we need to do, right? So for example, if we have like a presentation or a test that's coming up, we can use that stress that we're feeling about it, if we're a little bit worried about it, to help us study for it, help us prepare so that we can do well in this test. So one of the ways that I like to think of stress is think of it as sunlight, right? Every living being on Earth needs sunlight to survive. But what would happen if, we go and stand outside in the middle of June in the middle of the day for a couple of hours, right? It's not going to be a good feeling after, right? Taking so much sunlight. We're probably going to be sunburned. We might develop a fever later on in the day. And so some of the things that we're going to be talking about when it comes to stress, stress management, some of the coping skills, think of those as having like an umbrella, a parasol, or sunblock, sunscreen, right, for your screen, so that you can cope with that amount of sunlight. So just really quickly, I wanted to mention a little bit about our biochemistry, and the reason for this. There's a reason for this. So as humans, we have two basic sets of biochemicals, right? So it's one set that alarms us. It's what makes us run faster, right? Run away from that bear faster, or just get away from those threats. These are released automatically, and they're going to trigger that fight, flight, or freeze response in our bodies. These chemicals are definitely useful in the short term, but they're harmful in the long term, right? And so I think out of this list of biochemicals, the one that we've probably heard about the more often than not is probably cortisol, right? I've heard it referred as a stress hormone. And so we all know, I think a lot of us know what cortisol does, right? It can cause all kinds of different physical, things. A combination of these biochemicals, again, over time, they can cause migraines, high blood pressure, diabetes, all of those kinds of things. And so, but it's not all bad news, right? Because we have a different set of biochemicals that our body releases when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling relaxed, when we're feeling safe, right? When we use our coping skills to manage stress. And these are, I think, out of this list, the one that I've heard about the more often is the endorphins, right? So the endorphins are, it's what's released when we exercise, right? And so, again, the reason that I wanted to bring this up is because, because of these chemical reactions that we have in our body, it is physically impossible to be both stressed and relaxed at the same time. So when we're feeling stressed, what we really want to aim for is the release of some of these other biochemicals by doing some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So, what are some of the things that are stressing us out? Any takers? The pandemic is definitely one of them, yes. Anybody else?
Family life.
Family life? Yes. So one of the things that I do for my job is to actually go out to the schools and talk to some of the kids about some of this stuff, some of these mental health topics. The number one thing that I've heard, at least these last few months, is what? School. Yes. So these are some of the things that in just some recent surveys, kids have identified as their there are sources of stress. So tension at home, family discord, any big life changes, right? It can be bad things that happen, or it could be good things that happen, right? So the birth of a sibling, or moving, even if it's to a bigger, better place or a better area or whatever the case may be, it's still a big life change. Graduating, moving from middle school to high school, what have you. Making friends, managing social relationships, managing romantic relationships for those teens that are dating, dealing with bullies, of course, school tests, grades, all of that kind of stuff. And one of the more surprising ones, I think, is the last one is social issues. And these include gun violence and school shootings, suicide rates, climate change, immigration issues, and sexual harassment. And so these are a lot of the things that, especially I think, our youth and our teenagers are receiving from different media sources, and they might not know what to do with this information. So we're going to break down stress into 4 different categories as far as signs go, so that we can kind of keep an eye out for some of these things. So physically, what does stress feel like? How do we know when we're stressed out? I'm sorry? Feeling tense, yes. What else? Headaches, nausea, yes. And so here we have a small list of things that could be some of those signs of stress that we can, definitely keep an eye out for when it comes to our kids. So feeling sick, meaning just kind of that general feeling of not being well, headaches, stomach aches, just different little aches and pains that don't necessarily have a cause. When somebody has a clean bill of health. Getting sick more often, right? Because some of those biochemicals will definitely affect our immune system. And so we might be getting a cold, a lot more often than we would otherwise. High blood pressure, acne, allergies, feeling tired, tight muscles, all of those kinds of things. And so, again, I know that this is a lot of things that we all already know about, but it's just, I think, a good reminder of things to keep in mind and things to keep an eye out for when it comes to our kiddos. Okay, so the next one is going to be behavioral signs. So what do people do? What do we act like when we're feeling stressed? So we might be feeling moody, yeah. What about a child or a teenager? What would they act like if they're feeling stressed?
They're very
Snappy.
snappy.
Well, sometimes we get snappy too, right? So this is I think one of the more comprehensive lists of examples that I have here. So not being able to relax, right, is definitely going to be one of those signs. Not enjoying activities. So if, for example, you have somebody that used to enjoy, hanging out with friends or painting or playing music or what have you, and then all of a sudden they're not enjoying that anymore. Withdrawing from friends, withdrawing from family, problem sleeping, either not sleeping enough or sleeping too much. That's definitely going to be one of those big signs. Eating changes, same thing, either eating too much or just not eating enough. Neglecting responsibilities, and this is going to, I think, definitely include school responsibilities, but also other kinds of responsibilities that they might have at home or outside of school. Reckless behavior, routinely expressing worries, complaining about school more than usual. Maybe crying, and excessive hostility towards family members. Now, the main thing I think to remember when we're talking about some of these signs of stress or some of these signs that somebody might be struggling is a change factor, okay? So we're looking for those changes. If somebody used to do or used to enjoy or used to behave a certain way and now they're not. Okay, so the next area is going to be psychological signs, and this is some of the stuff that more often than not is going to affect our performance, right? Whether it be at work or at school. So problems concentrating, not being able to remember certain things, being easily distracted, being worried or feeling anxious, and then negative thinking. So negative thinking, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but it's definitely one of those things that we want to keep an eye out for, because in therapy, I think a lot of people, a lot of other counselors might agree with me, is that we are what we think. So if I keep telling myself that I am dumb or that I'm not smart and that I'm not good for anything, in the long run, I'm going to believe it. And so it's important to definitely flag one of those things, and we'll talk about how to work with that, or how to help somebody, our kiddos, if they're falling into this negative thinking. And so the last signs that we're going to be talking about, the last set of signs we're going to be talking about, is emotional. And so this is where I think a lot of us are more familiar with them, right? So anger, irritability, being moody, being very frustrated, being defensive, having low confidence, and having low motivation. So again, just remembering that we're looking for that change in behavior and that change in just, I think going through adolescence, it's hard enough, and sometimes we're just irritable enough as it is. But again, we're looking for those changes, right? So how do we help our kids? How do we help our youth manage that stress once we've identified some of those behaviors and some of those signs that they might be struggling with something, that they're stressing out about something? Well, the first thing is going to be sleep. Sleep is definitely going to be one of those things that are essential for our physical, but also for our emotional well-being. I've always said, once sleep starts to go, everything else starts falling apart. So sleep is very, very, very important. So kids 6 to 12 years old are going to need anywhere between 9 and 12 hours of sleep at night, and our adolescents are going to need 8 to 10. I put these couple of last ones on there: limiting screen use at night and avoid keeping those digital devices in our room. Because a lot of the times what happens is, okay, lights out, everybody go to bed, and then we don't necessarily go to bed right away, right? Or our youth doesn't necessarily go to bed right away. They might stay on their phone, just kind of scrolling and texting back and forth with friends or whatever the case may be. And they might end up not going to bed till 2 or 3 in the morning. And then what's going to happen the next day? They're going to be moodier. They're going to be tired. They're not going to be able to focus in school. And so it's important to kind of keep an eye on those things, right? So limiting that screen, the screen use, and also, if possible, if at all possible, just making sure that the cell phone is put away, that tablet is put away, the computer is put away, away from the area where they sleep. Okay, so the next one we already talked about a little bit, right? It's exercise. And so exercise, we said you can release endorphins when you do that, right? Physical activity is definitely one of those things that is going to help us feel better, that is going to help us sleep better, that is going to help improve our mood, for people of all ages. And so I just wanted to include on here too that the recommended amount of physical activities for any kid ages 6 to 17 is 60 minutes a day. So I know a lot of the younger ones, they still get PE. I don't know if at the high school level they do or they don't. But it's not a full hour, right? And so sometimes we need to make the effort of, making sure that they're staying active after school, or that there's some kind of physical activity that they can engage in, because it's going to help them sleep better, and it's going to help them just, with their overall mood. The next thing is just talking about things. So one of the things that we definitely do when we go out and we talk to the kids, to the youth in our community, is we always ask them to identify, to think about, to pick at least one adult that they trust. And there's a lot of research that backs up the fact that if one kid has at least one adult that they can reach out to, that they can trust, that they can share with, they do a lot better. It is one of those protective factors that keeps them, that can protect them from developing mental health issues or some other kinds of issues, right? And so unfortunately, that one adult is not always going to be us as their parents. But if they can identify that one person, it can be somebody at school, it can be somebody else from the community at church, or whatever the case may be. As long as they have that one person, this person can help them put things into perspective and help them come up with solutions that they may not have been able to come up with on their own. Also, I like to think that as adults, we hopefully know when it's time to get professionals involved, right? And we know which things we can and can't or shouldn't be keeping secrets. And so that's definitely important part of the guidance that we can provide. One of the things about having these conversations with our kids is, of course, going to be listening non-judgmentally. The second we start, voicing our judgment, because a lot of the times, but especially when it comes to our own kids, I think, they'll come up with something, and sometimes the knee-jerk reaction is to tell them, well, you're wrong, right? Or I don't agree with that, or whatever the case may be. And that's definitely one of the things that we do that adds that judgment into whatever it is that they're saying. So listening not judgmentally doesn't mean you have to agree with what they're saying. It just means that you're listening to them and you're opening up that dialogue. And instead of saying you're wrong, you're asking maybe, I'm just trying to understand, where you're coming from or what's going on, and so let's have that conversation. So that's really what it is about. So to keep that conversation going. Next thing that we can do is making sure that there's time for fun, but there's also time for quiet. I know that there's some kids out there that have a full schedule after school, but sometimes it's important to also schedule that free time where they don't have any responsibilities and they don't have anywhere to go, or scheduled time. It's really about finding that healthy balance between favorite activities, between having fun, between sports, or between hanging out with friends and having that quiet time and that time that nothing else is scheduled. Going outside is very important. Research shows that areas that have nice green spaces, people do a lot better over in those areas with less depression and less anxiety and less stress. And I know green areas doesn't mean like literal green areas. There are some beautiful places that we have out here in the desert as well that we can spend some very nice time in nature. Okay, and then one of the last things is going to be to talk about it. So I know I think there's fear about writing things down, right? Because somebody might find whatever it is that you're writing about, somebody might read it, they might not respect your privacy, they might just get curious about it, or whatever the case may be. Excuse me. Well, it helps to write things down, it really does, and I do recommend it because there might be days where it's hard to come up with positive things to focus on, and having something in writing can really help you go back and look at, oh, look, there's this and there's that, and it's not all bad, right? But again, just getting, I think that the main point is getting into the habit of reflecting on some of these positive feelings, some of the accomplishments, some of the things that we're proud of, some of the things that we're grateful for, getting into the habit of focusing on that. The picture I have up on the slide is, I think, a really good example of what a lot of us do just naturally, right? Our brain is wired to look for bad things. It's wired to look for changes. It's wired to look for things that could hurt us. And so a lot of those things are those bad things that happen during the day. And so what we have here is our brain focusing on one little bad thing that happened, and then on the other side, on the other end, you have a mountain of good things that we're not even paying attention to. And so getting into the habit again of focusing, of forcing ourselves to focus on those positive things is really going to make a difference down the line. And we can definitely help our kiddos do that, get into the habit of doing that as well. Mindfulness is another one of those things that we can do. So mindfulness is going to be fully present in the moment. We are aware of where we are and what we're doing, and we're not overreacting or feeling overwhelmed by what's going on around us. So mindfulness is another one of those habits. You don't really have to go out of your way to practice mindfulness. You don't have to sign up for meditation classes or for yoga classes or anything like that. You could do that, but you don't have to. So because the essence of mindfulness is just doing those things intentionally and giving them your full attention. So we really can do any activity that we do already, but do it mindfully. So you can wash dishes mindfully, you can fold laundry mindfully, you can take a walk mindfully. And the way of doing that is engaging your five senses. So you notice things that you can see with your eyesight, right? You notice things that you can hear that maybe are not immediately obvious, right? You notice things that you can feel on your body that sometimes we don't think about, right? Like, what do our clothes feel like? Unless it's itchy, we tend to not notice it, right? We are looking for, different smells, maybe that again we're not necessarily immediately noticing, and then our sense of taste. Is there anything that we can taste? And so again, we can really engage in any of these activities, and it can be one of those things that can help us relax. It can help us ground us in the moment. I have here a breathing exercise that I wanted to share with you, and this is called square breathing. And so what you do is you inhale and you count to 4, and then you're gonna hold that breath for 4 seconds. You're gonna exhale for 4, and then wait again, 1, 2, 3, 4, before you inhale again. The purpose of a lot of these breathing exercises is not to teach us breathe, because we all know how to breathe, right? But it's something that we do like on autopilot. The purpose of this is to turn our attention to something that we're so used to doing, and focusing on one of these automatic processes that we have is a way of focusing our attention away from sometimes the mess that's happening in our heads. If we're worried about something that's going to happen for the rest of the day or tomorrow or in a week or in a month, it can really help us focus on just what's going on right now. So I wanted to just throw that out there for you all to see. Some other things that we can do to help our kids, first of all, is going to be model healthy coping. So modeling is doing, right? We are leading by example. So what do our kids see when they see that we're stressing out? Do they see an adult that's reaching out for an alcoholic beverage? Do they see an adult that is smoking a cigarette? Do they see an adult that is frustrated and yelling? Or do they see somebody that's actively trying to cope in a positive way? So these are things that we're definitely not trying to teach our kids, but they're paying attention and they're seeing what we're doing. And again, we are leading by example. So being very self-aware of how we're coping with some of these things is going to be, very important. The next way that we can help is just let them be their own problem solvers. Sometimes as a parent, we want to solve everything for our kids. We want to remove every barrier. But if we do that for them every single step of the way, by the time they reach, adulthood, they might not be able to take care of anything, right? And so it's perfectly okay to guide them and to give them advice and to, maybe give them examples of what we think we would do or how the situation could be solved, ultimately empowering them to make that decision on their own, to give them that sense of independence and that sense of mastery. Next is promoting media literacy. And media literacy means knowing how to differentiate and how to process and absorb the information that we receive from media sources, right? Whether it's the news, and newspaper, magazines, social media, right? Not a problem. Knowing how to distinguish, okay, this is a source of information that I can trust, or maybe this is something that I should not, worry about, or that I can dismiss. So this is definitely important because our kids are spending a lot of time online, right? I think it's critical right now for them to be able to make that distinction and be able to say, you know what, this person or this website or this whatever is just not something that I wanna worry about right now. So we talked also a little bit about negative thinking, right? So how do we combat negative thinking? A lot of our negative thinking, I think, has to do with something that is called like all or nothing thinking, right? So if something goes wrong, then maybe that means that things are always going to be wrong, or I'm always dumb, or I'm always not good for anything, right? And so how do you combat that? Is you focus on reality, right? Think about how many good days have you had in your life? But days that you can say, this day was 100% good. Nothing, absolutely nothing bad happened. Or we can focus on the opposite, right? Try to think about a day that was absolutely bad, 100%, zero good things happened throughout that day. I can guarantee that you're probably not going to be able to count those days with one hand. Because the reality is that our days are a combination of things, right? But just like that picture that I had up there a few slides ago, we notice different things. So if we're in a good mood, if we think that we're going to have a good day, sometimes we're going to ignore those bad things that happen, right? Just like the opposite, if we wake up on the wrong side of the bed and then we get a flat tire and we pour the coffee on ourselves, we just know it's going to be a bad day, and so we notice those bad things, right? So how do you combat negative thinking? You look for those exceptions, right? So we're looking for those good things. So if you have a kid that's telling you, I'm not smart, you can help them come up with situations, sort of examples of how they are actually smart. Or, yeah. The last thing is going to be to listen and translate. Sometimes our kids don't have the language to be able to put the labels on the things that we're feeling, right? Depending on their age, but sometimes it doesn't even matter what their age is. They might not have the vocabulary to say, you know what, I'm feeling stressed out. You know what, I'm feeling really sad. A lot of the times all we see is anger. And anger is one of those secondary emotions, right? A lot of the times there's something else behind it. It could be sadness. It could be being scared. It could be being stressed out. And so it is up to us to give them those words and those tools to help them identify. I asked you earlier, what does stress feel like in your body? And that's a good step to start noticing some of those emotions and some of those feelings. What does it feel like? What are some of the thoughts that go along with it and all of those things, and helping them translate it, and again, expressing themselves and saying, oh, you know what, it sounds like you're feeling stressed out. Okay, well, what are we going to do about it? And then just coming up with that plan. And the last thing is going to be seeking support, right? So us as adults, hopefully we know, again, when it's okay, to keep information, to reach out to somebody, or to encourage, these kids to seek that support. So this is some of the information that I have for you all regarding additional community resources, asking help from a mental health professional. There's tons of resources in the city available right now, especially when it comes to COVID. Mental health resources. We have a few numbers over here that are available 24/7. One of the things that I always like to communicate when I present these numbers is the names can be kind of deceiving, right? So, I don't want to call a crisis line because I'm not in crisis. I don't want to call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline because I'm not suicidal. That's okay. Those lines are there for support. They are there to have that listening ear, to have access to that mental health professional, regardless of whether you're going through a crisis or, your child is going through a crisis or not. That's what these lines are for. Okay, so again, don't be misled by the name of these hotlines. Let me see. One last thing, and again, this is COVID related because I think a lot of us are kind of stressing out about COVID, and there's a lot of uncertainty and changes that are happening on a daily basis. So we do have this COVID-19 mental health support counseling line. And this again would give you access to a mental health professional to talk about whatever the concerns are regarding COVID. So that is all the information I have to present to everybody. Thank you so much for having us. And does anybody have any questions before we move on? Thank you. Oh, I forgot to add, we have some flyers and some additional information over here on the table.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ms. Flor, come on over and we'll kind of close up, but Ms. Flor?
Yes, we have provided you with an index card on your tablets and your clipboards. If you have a question or a comment that you want to make, please write it down. That way you, Dr. Mesa and some of the administrators from the district can answer that question or that comment that you might have. If you want to take a few minutes to write down your question, or if you have a comment for Dr. Mesa or any of the administrators present.
Bueno, no sé si tenemos la respuesta, pero a lo mejor yo creo que es para los consejeros que están aquí, so we might want to get them a microphone. I'm going to translate this question. It's asking, my son gets a lot of anxiety, and he likes to be eating in that moment. He does not understand that it's not good for him to eat in excess, and in that case, what is it that can be done there?
I don't know. I think this is a very specific question that we could maybe talk about more in detail offline.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So we'll do that. I think the one recommendation I'll make there is that we need to probably take our children to go see their physicians too. That's also a good conversation to have. But for the person who asked this question, our speakers are here after our meeting so that you can talk to them individually and they can get that question for you. Para la persona que nos hizo esta pregunta sobre la ansiedad sobre su niño, si se queda después de la junta para hablar con los consejeros, para que le puedan dar un poquito más en detalle para poder darle esa información. All right, here we go. We have another. Okay, la pregunta, the question is, due to the increase in cases in our district, what is the probability that we will return back to virtual classes? I am concerned about the health of my son and the personnel. So la pregunta tiene que ver con el ingreso de casos en el distrito, que es probable si regresemos a las clases virtuales. Nuestro distrito va a seguir abierto. Les quiero recordar que esa decisión viene más alto de mí. I do want to let you know that the decision to keep our district open is a lot higher than me. All schools in Texas are ordered open and encouraged to stay open by the Texas Commissioner. And so with that being said, the best thing that I can say is that in our district, we continue to take all precautions having to do with, washing hands, trying to social distance as much as possible. Although we are not requiring the mask, we are highly encouraging the use of the masks. Esta pregunta sí se hizo en la mañana y vamos a contestarla por escrito también. La probabilidad de que cerremos el distrito no va a existir. simplemente porque en medio de todo esto que estamos haciendo, el comisionador de Texas, de Educación de Texas, eso es lo que requiere. So, sí va a haber instantes donde los alumnos, a lo mejor personal, tengan que regresar a casa, pero no vamos a regresar como empezamos la pandemia, a cerrar todo. Eso no es algo que se está promoviendo y por lo tanto en el distrito vamos a seguir abiertos siempre tomando esas precauciones. Another question or comment? If we notice a child is going through something, we speak to them, we know what the situation is, we reach out to the school and nothing is done, what would be our next step? Well, with that being said, depending on what is it that, defining on what is done and the assumption that nothing is done, we always make sure that we try to respect the privacy of the child unless you are directly involved with the child and would know, like for instance, if this happens to be your son or your daughter, if it's having to do with personnel, the district will take care of ensuring that we address and we talk to our personnel to make the improvement. But we are not at liberty to give detailed response back, especially when it deals with the privacy of the student. So I will remain after. If whoever asked this question, if you have something in particular that you'd like to speak to me, you're more than welcome to do so because I want to make sure that we try and help, okay? All right, do we have any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I'm translating for our mom here,
Okay.
and she wants to know what she can do for her son, who is constantly feeling upset. He likes to fight with his siblings. Sometimes he'll just wake up in a bad mood. So she's trying to find out how she can get him to speak to her, because sometimes he'll say, yes, I do feel stressed, and he'll cry, but she just doesn't know how to approach him in this case.
All right.
Okay. So again, I think with some of these questions we're talking about some like very individualized issues that we're all kind of facing, and so I wouldn't want to say this is a cure-all for everybody. I would definitely encourage you to use some of the coping skills that we talked about, but we can definitely talk offline, after the meeting if you're interested in having a discussion about this. Just because again, it's everybody's different, and so I would hate to just give some advice that's not going to work.
Okay, so we'll ask that parent to stay afterwards as well so that we can have that conversation. Remember that the best advice we can give you is make sure that you are taking your son, your daughter to their own physician so that they have the conversations on which way to go. Okay, la pregunta, the question has to do with clarifying the COVID testing that is going to be taking place. So we don't have that information in detail right this moment, but we will make sure that we include it as part of our SMORE letter that we send out. I'll make sure that Ms. Flor turns around and communicates with our nurse to make sure that we get you the exact testing dates. Lo que sí sé es que la información que tenemos sobre las pruebas semanales de COVID son diferentes días en las diferentes escuelas. Esto es lo que vamos a hacer. Ya ven cómo se graba este programa y luego lo mandamos en inglés y en español. En las preguntas vamos a agregar la información donde las escuelas están dando las pruebas semanales. La mejor persona que pueden hablar es hablar con la enfermera de la escuela, pero vamos a asegurarnos que esa información se agregue a la información que les mandamos electrónicamente. So we will make sure that that information is electronically sent because I don't want to give the dates incorrectly. But this is information that you're asking. We'll make sure that we add it as part of our s'mores letter that goes out in English and Spanish. Any other questions or comments that we can help with? All right. Ms. Flor, I know you always come back up and we try to get the evaluations filled out.
Please, parents, make the time to fill out the evaluation. The evaluation helps us and see how we're doing and what we can do better regarding the presentations that you request. They're at the end of the documentation that it was given to you on the tablets. Please fill it out. And also, before you leave, make sure that you pick up some resources that Emergence Health Network brought to you all. We have a lot of resources regarding mental health and the information that they provided during the presentation as well.
All right, I'd like to give a big thank you to our presenters for Emergence Health, and thank you for coming out and being out here twice in the morning and again this afternoon. I'd like to thank Ms. Flor and all of our parent liaisons, obviously our staff who is also here. On any given day, wherever you could be, you chose to be here with us on Progressing Together. Thank you so much.